So we will go on to the next part of the program, Frontier of Climate Action 2022. We will discuss about the challenges organizers are facing. So information, disclosure, buildings, and transportation. We have 3 sessions. First is about information disclosure, and we have invited companies and local government authorities. The moderator is from CDP Worldwide Japan, Senior Manager, Ms. Mayumi Kudo. May I invite the members of Session 1 to the stage. Thank you very much. I will hand over the microphone to Ms. Kudo. Thank you. Good afternoon. We will start the panel discussion. The first session, which is information disclosure towards decarbonization, Frontier of Climate Action 2022. From JICPA, Mr. Yoichi Mori, the Technical Director of Japan Institute of CPA. From Kirin Holdings, Executive Officer General Manager, CSP Strategy Head, Mr. Hiroshi Fujikawa. From Sompo Holdings, Group Sustainability Officer, Ms. Ryoko Shimokawa. From the City of Kyoto, Ms. Sayoko Matsumoto, Director of 2U Kyoto Project Promotion Global Environment Policy Office. Thank you for joining us. So, information disclosure across the world, there has been a major change. As we had earlier, many organizations are taking different approaches, and there are multiple frameworks and standards, and there are improvement in consistency and reorganization. So within the global trend, we will invite the panelists who are advanced in their activities, what they are doing in their respective organizations. So first of all, I will invite the brief introduction, Mr. Mori. Thank you. Once again, thank you very much. I have been engaged in the area of information disclosure about integrated reporting or sustainability or climate-related information disclosure. As Mr. Komori of ISSB discussed earlier, there are major changes occurring across the world, and the IFRS Foundation has now worked on the ISSB-related work. That is the largest change. And across the world, there are policy changes. For example, in EU, CSRD directive. EU is also working on their directive. It is an action in Europe, but this is going to have a big impact onto Japanese businesses. Why? Because extraterritorial application will occur. For companies outside of the EU, if they do have subsidiaries and if there is a certain size of sales in the EU, the companies will be required to disclose the information. So there will be a significant impact on the Japanese companies, and institutional investors also will have to disclose. Institutional investors are thinking hard, very interested in how to collect the information from Japanese businesses. And US SEC, they have made a proposal, and Japan is also accelerating the activities. The principle is there is the security report rules in Japan by the FSA. Within the Japanese systems, there will be added requirements of disclosure. So which standards ought to be utilized? The decision will be made within this year. In the case of Japan, SSBJ has been established. Sustainability Standard Board of Japan. It has been established in July in Japan, and I am also a member of this new board. So together with ISSB and with EU standard setters, we are trying to make a global, consistent sustainability-related standards, including climate-related disclosure. May I have my last slide, please? So what kind of information should be disclosed? The next page, please. Regarding climate change, the ISSB standards I have tried to map in a diagram. The whole point is anything that would impact the enterprise value, that would be important. What information will impact the enterprise value? Material risks and opportunities related to climate. There will be an impact on the enterprise value, including the financial performance. And the companies, they will have to have collected information. They need a strategy. Otherwise, they would not have the information to disclose. So these would be the areas that a major change would be expected. Thank you, Mr. Mori. And next, Fujikawa-san, please.
Please show the presentation material on the screen. From a company's perspective, I would like to explain to you what our company, Kirin, is doing. In the case of Kirin, 2017, CSV advanced country, that is what we declared. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we set up 4 CSV purposes: health, community, environment, and we originally started out from the beer business, and as the foundation, as an alcohol manufacturer, we have to be responsible. We have to be a responsible alcohol producer and eradicate harmful use of alcohol. And as you can see on the right-hand side, we have a group materiality matrix, and we use this matrix. And there are indices such as health, community, and environment, and we picked up these indices to measure. And today, the main topic is environment. So we would like to talk about Kirin's environmental actions. Mainly, we started out when there was the Earth Summit in 1992. That's when we started to focus on environmental activities. And we've been focusing on a global framework since then. And most recently, in 2017, TCFD, TCFD trend became clear, and it was in 2013 that we started to focus on CSV. So 2017 TCFD we are supporting, and TNFD we are following that framework to conduct our disclosure as well. And in addition, various global frameworks or accreditation organizations, we try to communicate with them as soon as possible. We've been doing that from as early as possible, and by making these efforts, as was mentioned before, what we thought was good was by communicating with these people, we can reflect a lot of advanced measures to our corporate management, and we can discover new ideas. And last page, and at the same time, IRC, it's in our integrated report. It explains about the Kirin Group's value creation model. And we have our L value creation model. And on the left-hand side, there's input. And starting from input, we are working on food, health science, and pharmaceutical business through our core businesses. We want to generate output, robust output, and we want to create a social value with stakeholders. That is our CSV strategy. And from the right-hand side, from outcome, we return back to input. And the most important message I want to get across to you today is with multiple stakeholders, we try to communicate as much as possible. And that communication, we try to reflect as much as possible in our corporate management. That is a PDCA. And this concludes my explanation. Thank you.
Mrs. Shimokawa.
Yes, thank you. Could we have the slides? My name is Shimokawa from Sampo Holdings. Corporate endeavors are what I'm going to talk about, following on Kirin. This is it. Perhaps you're well aware, Sampo Group has a 130-year history, and its main business is insurance. There's Sompo Japan, which is known domestically. There's overseas insurance and overseas government and nursing, life insurance. These are businesses that we have which are unique. On the left-hand side, you have the Sompo's purpose is to realize a society in which all people can enjoy their own lives in good health and affluence through a theme park of safety, security, and health. And toward the realization of the purpose, we're trying to create value through our main line of business, and this is systematized as SDGs management. A new management foundation has been positioned, and toward the realization for this, our materiality priority points are 7, and I will be focusing on the climate area, as is shown here, economy, environment, and the society to be in harmony, to contribute to the green society. And then there's Sompo climate action and the mitigation and the transformation contribution. And on the next page, what we did this year has been shown: investment and loans. For example, a domestic Sompo group first GHG reduction targets in relation to investment and loans to reduce by 25% is what we publicized. And NZAOA, Net Zero Asset Own Alliance. The domestic Sompo group joined as the first company into this. And the last page, page 4, that's underwriting insurance. That's our main line of business. GHG reduction measurement, development of disclosure measures, the PCAF. We've been asked to join PCAF, and so we're joining in the rulemaking process as well. And in June of this year, through insurance understanding, decarbonization ESG policies have been strengthened, and we have announced this as well. So I look forward to having this discussion with you. Thank you very much. Matsumoto-san next, please. Thank you very much. My name is Matsumoto from Kyoto City. I'd like to talk about municipalities' disclosure of information. Kyoto City, with pride and sense of mission as the birthplace of the Kyoto Protocol, enacted Japan's first ordinance dedicated to global warming countermeasures. It was one of the first cities in Japan to take action on global warming from a global warming perspective in urban development and daily life, and its citizens are united in their efforts. In order to achieve the target, the city is promoting a transformation of people's lifestyles and businesses, as well as energy and mobility that support these areas. Such efforts have been highly evaluated, and last year, in the first year of CDP registration, the municipality was awarded the highest A rating. The next slide, please. The disclosure of information by local authorities has 3 main implications. One is to make more progress in cross-border intercity cooperation and communication towards the 2050 Zero Challenge. In addition, increasing our presence in the ICLAY, Local Governments for Sustainability and Covenant of Mayors, we're steering committee chair there. We are actively working with other cities in Japan in the climate initiative, for which CDP serves as a secretary to further advance our efforts. The second is an important element in sharing the vision with stakeholders, including citizens, and putting it into action to achieve the goals. It will help local authorities to create plans that are tailored to local characteristics and evolve and improve them into concrete actions together with citizens and businesses. Third, the urban management perspective. The city intends to attract the domestic and foreign ESG investments and loans through the issuance of green bonds and other instruments, and the promotion of environmental information disclosure will be key from now on. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you, Ms. Matsumoto. Then we'll go on to the discussion. The first point is, in order to disclose information towards decarbonization, I will ask about the key aspects. As was discussed in your introductions, Fujikawa-san of Kirin, TCFD, TNFD are the global frameworks that has been emphasized from early timing. If you can elaborate on that, please.
Thank you. First, the best point is TCFD and TNFD. They both have frameworks, and SPD has a criteria and a methodology. And with frameworks and methodology and so forth, we are able to explain in a comprehensive manner, which we thought was good. And it's not a joke, but both within and outside of the company, particularly USG and CFBG, they are new areas. So how do they relate to economic value and other important for corporate management? When we try to communicate about these topics, both within and outside of the company, it's easier for us to communicate when we use these frameworks and methodology. This, I thought, was the best point.
And Ms. Matsumoto of Kyoto, at local government authorities, Kyoto has been very proactive under international frameworks and highly appreciated. Can you tell us more about that?
This time through CDP and disclosing information through the CDP, we can show not only our citizens but also the world that we are taking concrete steps to combat climate change, as pointed out in the Glasgow Climate Agreement at COP26. It's also important to share advanced practices with other cities through international networks such as JCAS, so we can evolve each other's efforts. And last year, we registered for the first time, and various efforts have been evaluated highly, and we were on the A list. Thank you.
Mr. Mori, so in this way, local companies are now expanding disclosure according to international standards, and going forward, what might be the challenges and what do you expect will happen? Thank you. I think there are two major points. First of all, data. That is, what the standards require is for the entire consolidated group, and information about the value chain is also required, and the timely disclosure of financial information is required. The scope will be different. It will be much wider scope and even more timely. They will be required, and including the results of the analysis, all that will have to be disclosed according to the requirement. The traditional information was using Excel and quite analog. I would say it was manual work, so to say. But by introducing accounting systems and data analysis can also be digitalized. Digitalization, I think, would be a major challenge for automation. Another point is the organization of each enterprise. And of course, the people on the front line is important, but the most important point is governance, including the board, disclosure and the decision making, how to establish the systems, because it is long-term strategy for the companies, their awareness about the risks, how companies are assessing and managing, and how that awareness is recognized in their investment decision. So not only one person, one director who can make the decisions, but as the board as a whole, how they are monitoring, supervising, and how they are governing the entity, that would be very important. Thank you. Data and governance. I think those were the two key words. So, Mr. Fujikawa, regarding information collection, in your company, information regarding decarbonization, you have to look at scope 3, including the value chain. So at your company, the materiality of scope 3, what are the difficulties of collecting information?
In our group, 84% of GHG is from scope 3. It accounts for a substantial portion, so we have to take measures as soon as possible in an advanced manner. And we have a group overall procurement policy, and we have code of conduct. And together with the suppliers, we share this information. Not only that, human rights and our group's environmental vision, we share all of this information with the suppliers, and we distribute questionnaires to the suppliers. And what is not done, we try to communicate with the suppliers. And on top of that, It should not be one-way communication. Therefore, if there are challenges, we try to ensure that there can be whistleblowing. There can be requests raised by the suppliers as well. For example, SEDEX, external organizations we use as well. And next year onwards, the CDP supply chain program we are intending to start. Framework outside of the company, we would like to use as much as possible.
Thank you very much. The second point about the governance and the internal organization, Ms. Shimokawa. So information disclosure towards the decarbonization and about the strengthening organization for decarbonization. And you have dedicated a division, but how to encourage non-dedicated division?
Thank you very much. On the first point, at our company, and not restricted to sustainability, but the group CXO and ownership of different divisions that we have promoted in 2010, we have become a private sector established company, and we've been evaluated highly as very positive in our efforts. CXO, as with changes of important issues, an appropriate officer is assigned. And sustainability promotion and strengthening thereof is something that we've done last year. In August, Group CSU, Chief Sustainability Officer, was decided to be established. And through the nomination committee, I was appointed as the first in that position. And including myself, CXOs has a biocommunication team. And at Sompo, in general, non-financial information, non-financial is hidden financial value. This is something that is intended to become a value in the future. So through sustainability promotion, the hidden financial, the unrealized the financial values that we want to realize, and the values which cannot be seen, we want to visualize. So that stakeholders, we can have proper communication with the multi-stakeholders. In the ultimate end, we want to enhance corporate value. And that's the objective of the team. And the second question, other than divisions that are exclusively related to this topic, to work on other divisions, I talked about materiality earlier on. 35 materiality KPIs have been established. And so the materiality KPIs are such that this action is such it's an attempt to solve issues through our main business and different management issues and work style reform KPIs. These are all interlinked. And so the group as a whole, the ordinary strategy promotion foundation is what this is part of. And as for the materiality KPI, including commodity product development and loans and investment, GHG reduction, value chain, ESG considerations have been broadly established. So it's not something that can be done by the department in charge. There has to be a cooperation both inside and outside the country, and that's the framework. And that's how we disclose the information. And the last point is that I am chairing a group with executives, a Sustainable Management Promotion Council, and we confirm the PEC, we check progress, and we try to involve the entire company. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So a company-wide organization has been established. Thank you for the information. Ms. Matsumoto, City of Kyoto. At the introduction, as you mentioned at the beginning, disclosure is linked to green finance disclosure. Can you elaborate on this?
The Kyoto City Global Warming Prevention Plan calls for the promotion of green finance, including the use of ESG finance and green bonds in finance, which is the foundation of all businesses. Last year in Kyoto, a growth strategy has been formulated, and one of the leading projects is green finance, green bond issuance, and ESG investment, attracting ESG investment from inside and outside of the country. Through issuance of green bonds, decarbonization is necessary for environmental protection, but it's also key from the perspective of key management. That is our view. This year, the city aims to issue a new municipal bond specializing in the environmental sector, the Kyoto City Green Bond. Through this, Kyoto City will take the initiative in issuing green bonds to promote the green finance for companies in the city.
Thank you very much. So in this way, regarding disclosure of information, it's not a disclosure just for the sake of disclosure, but it should link to future actions or to the promotion of green finance. Going on to the second point. So how to link information disclosure to actions related to climate change. First of all, Ms. Shimokawa, Sompo Holdings.
Thank you. At our company, since we're not a manufacturer, there's things that we can do by ourselves, but what is expected of us more is in terms of investment and loans, or through underwriting and insurance with the customer to support the society's transition. So we have to do what we have to do, but by 2030, 70% of renewable energy is what was our target. And last year, we've achieved 100% for the headquarters building. As for services that we provide to the customers, a different one. 2012, July, one Sompo window service is something that we started for offshore wind. We ascertain the risk, we evaluate, and we arrange for insurance. It's an integrated service. We support businesses that do that. And other than that, contributing to the society's transformation, as mentioned earlier, investment and loans and insurance underwriting. For the group, we have strengthened ESG policies. And as I mentioned at the outset, by 2050, GHG emissions net zero, aiming net zero alliance. There are different alliances, 3 groups, NSAMS, NZ, ZAO, and we've joined 3 groups, and we're the first company in Japan to join 3 such organizations. And the international rulemaking is something that we want to be positively involved in. We capture the most recent trends through this process, and we want to reflect this to promote green transition in our insurance underwriting and asset management, GHG reduction, accelerating net zero. To create new business services, business opportunities, to provide such services. By so doing, we want to contribute to customers' problem solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the physical risk of climate change is directly linked to your business, and that is why I think your activities are advanced. By being proactive for disclosure information, it would enable more actions that there will be better understanding of the stakeholders in the company. Can you tell me?
Yes. Kirin has taken various initiatives since the initial stage. In 1992, at the Rio Summit, the company president at the time participated, and so climate change response and NGOs, we have cooperated with all of this. In regard to disclosure, we've in 2001 environment report and the CSR report has been issued in 2024. We have been disclosing at an early point in time. And the CDP activities from 2005, we have been participating. And climate change questionnaires, we have been answering these since 20 years. And so in many ways, we engage in dialogue and we're improving our initiatives. So if by making improvements since 2017, CDP climate change list, we've been on the list 5 times in total. And what are the positives resulting from all of this? I think there are 2. That's vis-a-vis the external world, the 17 SDG partnership. I think this is it. For a long time, we have been improving quality and quantity of information disclosure, and we have a lot of trust, so we can take international and domestic initiatives. People call on us to participate, and their ventures and local governments, academia, NGOs, they all call on us, and we participate in a network of diverse nature. And as for in-house, If we disclose this externally and we say we'll do it and we make that commitment, and the employees feel that they have to take ownership, they have to do it. So that is the driver, as mentioned earlier. Other than departments that are directly involved, the other departments become involved. So it's effective in this respect. And last year, as I said, CSCO is what I became. So climate change countermeasures in places of management, I discussed and I proposed. And so in that sense, domestic stakeholders' understanding has been enhanced at different levels.
Thank you very much. Then Mr. Fujikawa keyed in the same question. So from disclosure of information, how to link it to action against the climate? What are the emphasis of your organization?
In the case of the Kirin Group, we originated as a manufacturer. We are a manufacturer. Simply said, malt is used and water is used, and yeast is added. And that is how we produce our alcoholic products, and we sell those products. And climate change and containers and natural capital and water, they are all important resources for us. So from risk perspective, we have to take robust measures. And we also manufacture consumer goods. In the future, we have to be able to take robust environmental measures. Otherwise, there is a reputational risk. That also is important to maintain our value and prevent risk. And by conducting high-level disclosure, there are green bonds and social bonds. And we may be able to reduce capital costs, and ethical products are on the rise. And that we think will be an opportunity for companies like us. So we have to take sufficient environmental measures, and if we disclose that, that will lead to both maintaining and increasing value. So we want to continue our utmost effort to disclose as much as possible.
Thank you very much. In order to raise enterprise value, looking at the entire supply chain or to look at the entire production processes, that wide perspective has been explained. If I may, in the case of Kirin, you are disclosing the reduction goal and the progress of CO2 accredited by SBTi. So can you tell us about your actions in and outside the company?
SBT Net Zero, we were certified the other day, and I'm repeating what I mentioned before, but TCFD and TNFD, SBT, we have to follow these frameworks as much as possible. And as Shimokawa-san mentioned before, people of these organizations, our main business is in Japan, and TNFD and ABW, people visited our company, and we were able to receive new information from these external organizations. And by participating in their pilot projects, we are able to raise our opinions to these external organizations. So we can receive information as much as possible, and we want to contribute as much as possible to rule making. That I also thought was very significant.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mori, if I may, in terms of accounting rules, from information disclosure to link it to action, how important is that? Can you tell us about your perspective? As for myself, IIRC, I was working with the integrated reporting, or the CDP. I have been working in accounting standards related to such organizations in the last decade or so. As I engaged in debate with my colleagues, the keyword was disclosure changes behavior. I heard this constantly. Disclosure changes behavior. All of our members, our colleagues, we are trying to envision what it would look like as we try to develop the framework, including the disclosure standards. When you say behavior, whose behavior? Corporate behavior, behavior of the entire capital market, behavior of the entire society. I think that is the case. ISSB, they are about to realize this vision, I think. So they are trying to cause a transformation. A major impact is focus on corporate activities and focus on the financial value of enterprises. Why is corporate value important? So what is the impact of climate change to the financial performance? There must be evidence. Companies must assess, recognize, and the companies have to explain how they view their risks. And the standards are not easy to follow. For example, the financial reporting, the asset, the revenue, and what are the amount of asset that is vulnerable to climate change, or what is the part of your business which the climate change might be a positive impact, but the companies have to explain and be accountable. Then before disclosure, the company have to understand and think whether they should continue to hold a vulnerable asset. Then if they decide to continue to hold a vulnerable asset, they must justify, explain why they are prepared to continue to hold such a vulnerable asset. They have to explain to the external party and the investor, asset managers. They have to be careful about the portfolio. If there are such companies included, they will be accountable for the asset owners. So for the entire investment chain, the disclosure does guide transformation in the behavior. And then when behavior has to be changed, after all, are you forced to change your behavior? Or like companies here with us today, are they proactive? Are they prepared to engage? And by assessing the corporate value, are they prepared to be proactive? I think that's a major change, whether you're reactive and forced or you are proactive. Disclosure does change behavior. But the company, how they think about disclosure, at what timing the actions will be taken, I think that will be important. What actions? Thank you. I am aware of the time. So Ms. Matsumoto, Kyoto City, you mentioned about the green finance as an outcome of a disclosure. About the citizens, in terms of the citizens' actions, can you give us a comment?
For the citizens, we take different policies, decarbonization society realization, and a more affluent society, relation thereof. For this purpose, in September of last year, we established the promotion team comprising citizens, businesses, academics, and young people, and they are contemplating what the lifestyle ought to be, and the vision has been formulated. And toward this, from 2050, there's a backcast to 2030, different targets for households and the citizens changing lifestyles, taking ownership and taking action. And we have created a list of actions, and this has been announced today. And we've created a site for this purpose. And these are things that we're doing. But these actions are such that specifically we have to have these citizens take action. And we need to create projects with a private sector taking initiative, and that is what we do, aiming for fashion loss zero. We've started a project. Citizens will take unused clothing to financial institutions in the city, or to clothing stores, and the apparel outlets sell this through bazaars and so forth. So there's a circulation of clothing, and these projects are being backed by Kyoto City, and we want to change the lifestyles of the citizens toward decarbonization.
Thank you. I think we shall have to start the summary. So from the panelists representing each of the sector, they have told us about the front runner activities. In particular, disclosure is not for the disclosure per se. They are trying to link it to external activities. I think we have learned a great deal about their endeavors. So I would like to invite your very final comments, a very brief, Mr. Modi. Thank you. I might be repetitive, but disclosure changes behavior. Disclosure and behavior must be interrelated. I am very impressed with what other companies are doing. Thank you, Mr. Fujikawa.
From the company's perspective, alphabet soup? Is it corn soup or pumpkin soup? It has to be identifiable and distinguishable. That's an important point. But before we wait for things like that, there are a lot of individual features in disclosure, and continuity is also important. So as soon as possible, we have to take measures, and we have to communicate with the stakeholders, and what we have to improve, we have to make efforts to improve. That's what I thought was important. Shimokawa-san, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me today. We've been invited today in relation to sustainable, and not to end the disclosure, just a disclosure, brand value and corporate value, to tie these in with this. And that is where we're struggling. And governance structure, I think, has been evaluated as a result of that. We are showing how we're struggling in the integrated report. So please have a look at an integrated report to see what we're trying to do. Please do have a read, and we would appreciate your impressions on this. Thank you very much. Matsumoto-san, please. As mentioned earlier, it was centered around private entities were promoting projects in Kyoto City, and I think that's advanced to a considerable, and we're advanced in that sense on the part of Tokyo City. As a platform, we want to organically connect this, and with regard to the results of this, we will disclose information. So we hope that this will change the decarbonization lifestyle of citizens. Thank you.
We had to rush through, but we have heard about the advanced cases, and thank you very much for telling us your precious experiences. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much to everybody of session 1. So may I invite the members of session 2, please. Across the world, there is rising pressure for more and better disclosure, but rather than waiting and being receptive or passive, I hope that there will be more forthcoming, proactive enterprises. Session 2 will be about the buildings decarbonization. There is the amendment of energy-saving building, and as Governor Koike mentioned, the mandatory solar system for new building will be introduced. So decarbonization of building and architecture is attracting attention. So that is why we have invited people from this sector. The moderator is Yuko Nishida, Senior Manager of the Climate Change Renewable Energy Institute.
Thank you very much. I am Nishida from the Renewable Energy Institute. Thank you for this opportunity. The theme for session 2 is decarbonization of buildings. Buildings, there's CO2, GHG emission, household, businesses. A lot of the GHG emission is from buildings, and it's 33% of the greenhouse gases emitted from buildings. A large emission equivalent to that of emission from buildings. And under such circumstances, towards 2030, we have set a target. And for Japan as a whole, 45% reduction is our target towards 2030. And in households, 66%. And in business, a 51% reduction is the target. And there's a lot of expectation towards emission reduction, and it also implies that there's a lot of potential to reduce greenhouse gas emission. As Okumba-san mentioned before, the government has started to take action, and municipalities have also started to take measures. Now, in this session, from JCI member companies, we have invited pioneer companies who are already taking measures. I would like to introduce the speakers. First, seated further away from me on the opposite side of the stage is Ms. Izuka, Executive Officer, General Manager of Sustainability Department, Sumitomo Forestry Company Limited. Next, from Takenaka Corporation, Principal Engineer, Design, Department Head Office, Mr. Takai. and Hewlett Property Solutions Representative Director and President, Mr. Uratani. And from Sekisui House Limited, Executive Officer, Mr. Chikara, who is Head of Environmental Promotion, as well as Climate Warming Prevention Promotion Office. First, we would like to call upon all of the speakers to talk about the measures that you are taking. First, Mr. Chikara of Sekisui House, please.
Thank you for the introduction, Chikada, Sekisui House. So we are a house builder. Ever since establishment, we have constructed more than 2.5 million housing units. But not only are we building houses, but we are engaged in different extensive businesses with the core with the house. So make home the happiest place in the world. This is our global vision. Make home the happiest place in the world, which means, of course, quality housing has to be constructed, but that is not enough. Today's topic is climate change. Without countering countermeasures of climate, people are not going to be happy. So we do emphasize climate change countermeasures, and we are doing quite a lot. When we first verified our CO2 emission for the first time for the entire company, it was back in 1999, quite some years ago. And the largest emission business was our product. That is, when the people buy our house and live and use our house, the emission was the largest, and therefore we have worked on producing energy-saving household. And now detached houses, 92% of the detached houses are ZEH, Z-E-H, zero emission housing. 92% of detached houses. If you look at the bottom of the slide, amongst our entire group emission, more than half is the emission when people live in the houses we produced. So we shall have to do more in order to produce ZEH or zero emission houses. Next page. What we are doing now is, so we have gone to 92% of detached houses. So what about the rental housing? Definition of ZEH, there are two. At the lower bottom side, that is, for the entire building, is it zero emission? So zero emission for the whole condominium. ZM means ZEH condominium. Or on the right-hand side, that is for unit-based ZEH, which means each and every unit is zero emission. Of course, there are solar panels on the roof, very highly insulated, energy saving performance very high. But if it is for the entire building, it does not mean that every unit is ZEH. So solar panel is provided for common use, and the resident would not be able to enjoy in their own room. But we emphasize the residents, and the unit-based ZEH is promoted, but the initial cost for unit-based ZEH is expensive. It is the owners of the houses who have to pay. But the owners do not live in that house because it is rental, and they do not enjoy the benefit of investing in ZEH. But for the tenants, if you appeal about the very eco-friendly house, you can raise the monthly rent, and if ethical consumers are increasing within a few years, in quite a near future, most likely, ZEH rental houses will be more competitive. It would be chosen by potential tenants, which means for owners who want to rent out their houses, it will be more stable business. If we explain, many owners understand, and even if the initial investment might be larger, they are prepared to invest. More than 20,000 such units we have received orders, so we are increasing the investment. And another advantage of increasing rental house ZEH buildings, if you live in a ZEH house, many people are satisfied and they want to live in another ZEH house when they change house. Rental means that they are expected to go to detached houses. If they experience a ZEH in a rental housing, it means that many people have experienced zero-emission houses, and as a result, many people want to continue to live in a zero-emission house, or when they decide to construct or buy a new house. So we are like a missionary, and we are working in this way. My last slide, decarbonization of our operations. Our facilities, when we construct new facilities, ZEB, zero emission building, anything that we construct freshly, it will be zero emission. And we have more than 10,000 fleet cars, and they are being replaced with EVs. By 2030, our corporate fleet cars will all be EV, and RE100, we are working on that. We procure renewable power that comes from surplus power coming from the solar panel on the roof. So FIT is still ongoing, but for customers who has ended FIT, they can sell to Sekisui so that we can become RE100. Co-working with suppliers, collaboration suppliers, the largest emission of CO2 in our business is the procurement of construction material and raw material, which is category 1 of scope 3, accounting for 35%. But that is not our direct business, which means we have to ask the suppliers to cooperate. To the suppliers, we have asked that by 2030, they should set up SBT targets. We have asked suppliers, not only asking, we are organizing study sessions, meetings, how to calculate, how to reduce emission. We are working with the suppliers, and the suppliers think it is their own matter. They take ownership, and many of our suppliers now have SBT targets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Particularly for rental houses, the measures that you are taking are advanced and pioneering. So I would like to ask in more detail later on. Uratani-san from Hewlett, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Uratani from Hewlett. Could you show the slides, please? Move back a slide, please. Hewlett, the company, is such that centered in the city center, we do business. A real estate development company, we are a developer. And toward the lower left, there's a photograph. If there are occasions where you notice our company, if you look at the underground, the metro signage on the left-hand side, we're sponsoring a Japanese chess or shogi, and so perhaps you've noticed our name. And in the middle of the slide is Chuo Ward, our headquarters located in Chuo Ward. That's where we are. 10 years ago, in 2012, in October, we have completed this building. On the right-hand side, there are different environment technology which we used in the building is shown on the right-hand side. And we have been certified in many ways, as shown here. And as is the case today, the normal building energy, we've been able to reduce the energy of normal buildings by, in the case of our buildings, by 50%. And this energy we use off-site in the renewable energy mega solar facility. The remaining 50% is sent from there. So this building is an off-site ZEB, Z-E-B, ZEB ready. There's a word called ZEB ready, and we've achieved the ZEB readiness. And this initiative is one of the things that led to our carbon neutral initiatives 10 years ago. Next, please. The next slide, please. Other than this building that I just referred to, there are different buildings where we do business, and these are examples of what we are doing. On the upper left, in Sumida Ward, in Ryogoku, in the National Stadium, there's a hotel. And as shown in the photograph, right before the building is Sumida River. We use the river water, and the hotel AC is such that it uses the temperature difference of the water, and it's an energy conserving type of AC. And below this is on top of buildings, rooftops, these are solar panels, and TMG is trying to make this mandatory at a very early point in time. On site, on respective buildings, to install solar panels is what we've done, and we've continued to do that. And if you look at the bottom right, The building has the carton wall integrated solar panels. This is something that we've done from an early stage. The upper right is a much talked about topic. In Ginza, we opened a 60-meter, 12-story building. This is the first high-story wooden structure building, and it's completely wooden frame. And at the very bottom, on the very bottom floor, there is an Apple store. So perhaps some of you are familiar with this building. And the bottom is the Kyoto version of the Gate Hotel. And the Kyoto City has extended their cooperation, a lot of cooperation. Kyoto primary school building has been used. We have revamped this, and we've added on new buildings. And reviving old buildings, and the old building and the new buildings are such that it's a building of longevity, 100 years. So we have seismic characteristics, which is more stringent than the intensity, seismic intensity standards of the country. And this is one of the distinctive features of Huvik's initiatives. In 2024 RE100 achievement and 2030 achieving carbon neutral, all of the power to be through renewable energy. That is what we have announced. And what is distinctive of this? Renewable energy source will be developed by ourselves, and we will own all of this, and we will hold this as non-fit. And that is the most distinctive feature. The Hewlett Property Solution, which I'm running at the moment, has a PPS. And that company buys the renewable energy source from Hewlett and sells it to Hewlett Buildings. And so they are the supplier. On the right-hand side, there's a photograph of a solar generation system. We have more than 30 locations of this. Next year, we want to increase this to 50, and we will have RE100 within sight then. And on the right-hand side is the hydropower generator, and we generated in Gunma Prefecture last year. And SBT certification, TCFD recommendation or agreement has been obtained. We have been certified by these entities so that externally we verify and we announce. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 2024, you're aiming at RE100, and 2030, you have further targets, very inspirational. And I would like to ask you about these points in more detail later on. Next, from Takenaka Corporation, Mr. Takai, please. I am Takai from Takenaka Corporation. As a construction company, I would like to explain to you what kind of decarbonization measures we are taking for buildings. In the case of our company, in 2019, we declared to be carbon neutral by 2050, and in 2021, we endorsed TCFD, and we were evaluated A- in CDP, climate change. And currently, we are trying to get prepared to be SBT certified. And our company's target is, compared to 2018, reduce scope 1 to 3 total emission volume by 35% by 2030 and achieve carbon neutral by 2050. We have set this target, and it is disclosed. And as you can see in number 2 of the PowerPoint, the large target that we have is to aim at constructing life cycle CO2 zero buildings by 2050. At the time of construction, scope 1 to emission. In addition to that, scope 3 upstream building material manufacturing and downstream operation, renewal, renovation, and demolition. At all stages, we want to reduce CO2 emission. In other words, we want to reduce life cycle emission to zero. Number 3 shows the image that we have from now to 2030, 2014, and 2050. We want to reduce emission in building material manufacturing and construction. We also want to reduce emission at the time of operation, and we want to gradually reduce renewable energy consumption. Next page, please. Number 4. This is information about the ZEB, zero emission buildings, that we have designed. And up to now, net ZEB, nearly ZEB, ZEB ready, oriented. In total, we have been responsible for 65 projects. Number 5 is targets of the buildings that we design, and the zero-emission building ZEB design tools that our designers use. Our target is by 2030, we want to reduce CO2 emission by 40% at the time of operation. And number 6 is about our design project management. For all design projects that we are responsible for, in all design projects, we make sure that we can benchmark from the basic planning stage so that the design division as a whole can visualize the target set and follow up. On the other hand, number 7, the future image that we have for a building material construction and construction. And we have set up targets, and for the time being, we want to increase usage of low carbon concrete in frames, increase blast furnace steel, and we want to promote wooden buildings and lignification, and we also want to introduce carbon negative concrete. Number 8 is low carbon concrete, ECM cement, and CO2 is fixed by using absorption type concrete, and by using these materials we want to be able to use carbon negative concrete. The key to this technology is using waste such as blast furnace slag and the concrete waste material. And number 9 is CO2 reduction measures at the construction sites. Currently the ratio is a quarter electricity and 3/4 diesel fuel. First we want to save energy, next we want to promote green electricity, then GTL fuel and biodiesel fuel, and we are expecting an increase in cost as we take these measures. And number 10, we want to renovate buildings in cities remaining as inventory. We think this measure is very important. ZEB renovation, conversion, reducing floor space, and preserving architectural assets, and renewable energy generation. We want to take these measures. And finally, number 11, wooden condominiums that we built in order to promote the decarbonization. And in these buildings, hydrogen can be stored during the season to generate power, and also for waste heat. Thank you very much. You explained about your own company's measures, and also there were requests made about what other companies should take as countermeasures. I want to ask about you in more detail later on. Ms. Izuka from Sumitomo Forestry, please.
Thank you. Ms. Nishida said up to only 3 PowerPoints. So Takenaka, indeed, within 1 slide, so much information was packed. It seems that my PowerPoint are rather spacey, so to say. But once again, thank you for the introduction. I am Izuka of Sumitomo Forestry. As of February this year, just like a SDG, by 2030, our corporate long-term value mission treeing 2030 has been established. The slogan is to pass on the earth as a comfortable house. The global environment and people's lives, society, market, and economic activities all should be carrying value, and we want to pass on the earth as a comfortable place to all people and living organisms, including future generations. And we have been strong in forest and wood, timber. So whether it be global environment, human and society, or market economy, we are trying to expand the values of all. Next page. Sumitomo Forestry, as our company name indicates, we manage forests and wood in and outside the country. This is a circular, renewable energy. So we do afforestation, we plant the trees, we fell and cut the trees, and we serve as a trading company. So we also purchase trees from other persons' mountains, but we process into lumber and timber in terms of construction. Sekisui has made an excellent presentation, but in our case, both in and outside our country, we do construct detached houses. In the last decade, we are emphasizing on wooden building for non-houses, not only detached houses, But for non-residential houses, I think there is a big opportunity. For wooden building, Hewlett also had a similar message. So we construct, and finally, we call this cascade utilization. So the particle board can be produced with the remaining wood chips, or it could be used for fuel at biomass power generators. And finally, the emitted CO2 will be absorbed by the wood and the forest. So it is infinity. This is the cover of the sustainability report. So this is the circular bioeconomy. We have the image of the mathematical symbol of infinity. So the forest and the wood, timber and the lumber and architecture, there must be a virtuous cycle. And this would mean the growth of our company. And it should also be a contribution in terms of providing new values to all the people in the society. Compared to other companies, I do not have much information about our company, but SBT goal has been set. We endorse TCFD and the CPD accredited for 6 years by 2030 compared to 2017. A reduction of 56.4% is our goal. So that's our own operations. And as Sekisui has mentioned, as for the houses that we have built and sold, if they decide to live for 60 years in our houses, how to reduce the CO2 emission for people who have bought our house and are living in our house. Following Sekisui, our ZECH has now reached about 80%. At the same time, we manage forest and the wood, we process, distribute, we construct, and then we use. Considering the entire value chain, there is one point I would like to introduce: operational carbon and embodied carbon. Ms. Nishida mentioned that the construction sector does emit quite a large portion of CO2. The numbers might look different, but there is the World Building Council. And in addition to the sectors, partly there is information about the construction material, or 37% or 38% or close to 40% are the emissions from the construction and architecture, and 70 versus 30. 70% out of 37 is the operational carbon. ZECH or ZEB has been mentioned. When you live in the house and use, 70% of the carbon is emitted, and the remaining 30% or so, as is shown on the right-hand side, that happens in the procurement of raw material, transportation, processing, construction, and the demolition. This is the emission related to the fixed asset. So increasing ZEB or ZECH means to try to reduce operational carbon to as close to zero as possible. So we, the builder, how to enhance the performance and how to raise the installation at the same time. Energy supply, if it is replaced with renewable, the operational carbon should go down. If renewable is expanded, and this is a 2020 global CO2 emission, 35 billion ton, and 37% is emitted from the construction, and 70% and 30%, and 30% is embodied carbon. If operational carbon is reduced, still embodied carbon emission will still remain. And the key would be how to select raw material. The cement, how can you save energy in the raw material? My colleagues have just mentioned that. In the earlier session, there was a discussion. So what is not visible, you cannot reduce. So disclosure changes behavior was mentioned. But in order to disclose, you need numbers and data. EPD is the so-called environmental labeling, environmental product declaration. The material in terms of life cycle, what is the environmental load? It has to be verified. And LCA, one-click LCA, we are the agency for Japan. So to standardize decarbonizing design, that is our high-level goal. Decarbonized design should be standard. So when people reside in the houses we produced, how to reduce operational carbon, and plus the process until we construct the houses, how to reduce emission. So wood and the forestry, the wood, timber, and lumber are the key materials. So it's not going to be 100% replaced, but the renewable nature of the wood, forest, and by making circular operation, we are going to reduce embodied carbon, and we are approaching our competitors in the sector as well. This is what I mentioned at the beginning, the earth, people, and the market, and our single characters, key coding. So three-legged key coding. So people, planet, prosperity, the triple bottom line, three-legged key coding. Kikori means logger. And climate, nature, equity is also what I emphasize. So talking about the environment, climate change, and Kirin was mentioning in the earlier session, nature is also important. So climate, nature, and equity, meaning human rights or equality. So our symbol Kikorin is standing by three legs, and I hope that we will contribute to decarbonization across the world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. You're focusing on forests, and you are aiming at realizing a circular economy. Thank you very much for your interesting explanation. Thank you very much, everybody, for your explanation, and we heard a lot. ZEC, zero emission housing, or ZEB, zero energy buildings, they are all becoming industry standards, and everybody used these words friendly. And in the last presentation, you used the word embodied carbon. We haven't heard this word frequently, but I hope you'll remember this word, embodied carbon. And common point in all presentation, I thought, was particularly ZEC and ZEB, how to promote introduction of them and how to accelerate the introduction of ZEC and ZEB. And the government is saying that by 2030, newly built buildings have to be either ZEC or ZEB. So this question is to Chikara-san at Sekisui House. Already, ZEC is considered to be standard. And about this point, for your company, what is the advantage of promoting the introduction of ZECs, zero energy houses? And if you are to expand this to the industry as a whole, what do you think should be done?
Thank you. Of course, as we try to decarbonize, effort to create ZEC, that is indispensable. That is an advantage, but our customers who live in ZEC, they are highly satisfied with the experience. As I said, make house the happiest place in the world is our goal. So zero emission houses has a direct impact onto the happiness of the residents. And I think this was a side effect, positive side effect. ZEC means more expensive. So there was some skepticism whether we can spread. But in the company, we studied a lot. We got together and studied about the economic viability. As a result, our employees, I think, had the ownership of social challenges, and they became masterful in talking and engaging with customers. Nature, circular economy. We had to deal with new concepts, but our employees, I think, were very early to become familiar with these concepts because of ZEC. So as a result, it was very difficult for us to start spreading ZEC, but it was successful.
And you mentioned before that you are promoting ZEC amongst rental homes. In the case of rental homes, how much can you decarbonize rental homes? This is a very important global theme, and it's difficult to find a solution. I think you all share this thought. And as you briefly mentioned before, something has to be key. The residents have to be able to feel that there's an improvement, and being able to offer that seems to be important. What do you think?
Indeed, to spread ZECH or rental housing, it was difficult for us to start because, as I mentioned, the benefit will be enjoyed by the tenants, not the owner. The owner who construct rental housing, it's for asset management. They don't want to invest too much, and they always want their house to be occupied by tenants. So cost increase, we thought it would be difficult for owners to accept. When we embarked upon this business, it was very difficult for us. We were very skeptic whether we would succeed, but with larger values, and we tried to raise the monthly rental fee, but it's 100% occupied. The rental house is 100% occupied. People choose ZECH rental houses. We decided that we can go, so we are strongly appealing the merit and advantage. And then we have to spread this advantage all over the country and the world. This is an excellent opportunity for us. So for all of you, if you agree with us, please do, owners, construct ZECH houses for rental. It's going to make money. The tenants who experience ZECH, they say that the next house will also be ZECH, they say. So in the future, I am sure it will be the ZECH era for the rental house.
Thank you very much for your powerful message. Now, Uratani-san, at Hewlett, you're going beyond zero energy building, and you want to go beyond RE100 as well. Even ZEB alone, it seems to be difficult, many people say, but what triggered you to take such pioneering and advanced measures? And how do you intend to expand such activities?
As I explained earlier, or I failed to touch upon this earlier. What I initially introduced, our headquarters building, well, this was offside the ZEB, and that was the very origin of our thinking. What I introduced earlier, the building is such that what is distinctive is that it's in a primary site in the city center, and it's a middle-sized building, and on-site ZEB is very difficult. In a very high-rise building, and if it's in the city center, to make this by unit, the ZEB is very difficult. So we thought of thinking in terms of companies. All of the buildings that we have in the city center, to make this ZEB. In order to do that, we have to have solar generation facilities, non-fit facilities in the suburbs. And the aggregate amount of both would be considered to make sense. So rather than a unit by unit ZEB, a corporate aggregate corporate ZEB is what we're aiming for. And solar power generation is such that the price is declining. So as an operating company, it makes it's viable as an operating company. It's profitable. Thank you.
So it seems as though there are tailwinds going towards you. It seems as though you're making progress, and I hope other companies can learn from you. Now, Takai-san, in the case of your company, other companies, ZEB, you are trying to incorporate other companies' technology, and you want to support other companies' development of technologies. As you promote ZEB or beyond that, are there any difficulties that you are facing? In the non-residential sector, the buildings tend to be very large. So 100% net ZEB is difficult to realize. But there are various types of ZEBs. 50% or 40% or 75%. In that sense, even without renewable energy, these kinds of ZEBs are realizable. In the Japanese Construction Industries Association, there was a survey, and the 50% reduction ZEB ready can be achieved by just reducing cost by 50%. And there's an increase in such buildings. Technical challenges under such circumstances would be in terms of construction, heat installation, and at the openings, solar shading. These measures have to be endurable over a long time, and we have to take measures outset. And for non-residential buildings, the development of such technologies is lagging behind compared with residential, so we have to catch up. And renovating existing buildings to make them ZEB, and that is costly. Cheap, affordable material should be used as much as possible to conduct such renovation. How can we do that? And we have to be able to renovate buildings to become attractive buildings. And combining various measures to overcome these challenges is difficulty. ZEB ready, up to ZEB ready, you can achieve without so much increase in cost. Only about 10% increase in cost is necessary to achieve ZEB ready. Is that true? Well, it depends on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes you can achieve ZEB ready by just 10% increase in cost. In some cases, you can achieve ZEB ready without an increase in cost. We have to discuss with the clients and decide. So please take leadership in your initiative. So, question to Hulick. What is your business model that was mentioned about ZEB ready? If Hulick's business model is combined with ZEB ready, it seems as though it's ideal. And Izuka-san of Sumitomo Forestry, at Sumitomo Forestry, you're very much focusing on LCA, life cycle assessment. In particular, visualization seems to be an important point. That's the impression I got from your presentation. Could you please elaborate on that point?
Thank you. Indeed, our business has always been about trees and the wood. Wooden building, the warmness of the trees, it's very emotional and comfortable. Of course, the wood does have absorbing function and will control the humidity. But with data and number, why wood building is good for decarbonization, it was very difficult to indicate the data, and we could have done more. Our effort was not enough. So a general wooden building and a reinforced steel building, and when the owner decides to construct a building, what the structure shall be chosen, what the design, what construction material should be chosen, then how could the life cycle emission be reduced? A tool is required to measure. What is not visible cannot be reduced. So to visualize and to control the emission, there must be a system and institution introduced in the Japanese market. Throughout that process, of course, we have the mountain with the forest, and we handle construction material. So it should be a positive for our business. It should be a contribution to the Japanese market. And we hope that the society will also change for the better. Together with colleagues who are with me today, I want to work with you and to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. JCI, when it comes to construction, and there are many construction companies and real estate companies that become members of JCI. And when it comes to construction, everybody becomes a stakeholder in the construction industry, I think. Therefore, all of the speakers, their organizations, companies are taking pioneering measures. What do you think are the important points for future construction? Any messages?
Thank you very much. As Ms. Nishida, you mentioned the construction industry. There are so many stakeholders. For example, ZECH and the scope 3 category 11, that can be reduced with our efforts alone. But to reduce for the entire value chain, we simply have to ask other companies or even go beyond different industry sector to ask them to reduce, which means we want to unite and to collaborate in solidarity. Thank you for this opportunity.
浦谷さん。
This has been raised several times earlier. Construction, decarbonization, and environmental structure improvement. Economy, initial cost, and the economics of it should not be used as an excuse. For all of the buildings, it's inevitable that you improve environmental performance, and you do not make excuses that you don't do it because it costs money. And for this purpose, in particular, when we place orders, Hewlett, I ask for cooperation for those that are sitting next to me.
Sakai-san, I have a similar impression. Building material manufacturing upstream, we want to collaborate with them, and we also want to collaborate with the downstream entities. We can share target, and the challenge is large, but we want the construction industry as a whole to cooperate and try to overcome challenges. Thank you very much. Buildings, once they are built, 30 years, 50 years, and 100 years, they continue. So if you want to decarbonize by 2050, you have to build the carbon neutral buildings. Otherwise, once the buildings are built, they remain. So initial cost should not be used as an excuse, as somebody mentioned, for the operators as well as for the consumers. How can we change our attitude or awareness? That is an important point. It's not just one company, but the industry as a whole should cooperate, and we also have to cooperate with the people of other industries and sectors, and by so doing, we want to aim at net zero towards 2050. We have to take action immediately. Taking action is important. Let us accelerate our actions. Thank you very much for your participation today.
Thank you very much to all. Within Japan, aluminum sash, single pane windows, we still have a lot of that. We've heard a lot about very advanced initiatives. Session 3. We'd like to move to session 3 on decarbonizing the transport sector, including where emissions reduction are difficult. The transport sector is very difficult, and we have representatives from the transport sector and local authorities. This will be moderated by Ken Tanaka, Climate and Energy WWF Japan, a non-state actor engagement. So when you're ready, we give the floor to you, Mr. Tanaka. Thank you very much. I'm Ken Tanaka, Climate and Energy Group Officer, WWF, a non-state actor engagement. I will be moderator today. Session 3 is on transport. Japan's CO2 emissions, 20% is accounted for by the transport sector. And that is the theme today. It includes the transport sector, and to move ahead with the decarbonization, rolling stock, electric and hydrogen vehicles must be used, and you need charging devices, and you need hydrogen stations, so you have to improve infrastructure. And what we use daily, the traffic and transportation, we should be able to make choices. We have to create a structure where people can make choices. I have 4 participants from the shipping industry, from the public transport sector, rail and local governments. We have 4 participants who will be discussing transport. The state-of-the-art initiatives will be discussed here. So let me introduce the 4 participants. And as I do so, I'd like to ask them to introduce their initiatives in transport, across boundary, logistics, is handled by shipping. So we have a representative from the shipping industry. From shipping industry, decarbonization, international rulemaking is what the speaker is participating in. Nippon Yusen Kabushiki Kaisha Executive Officer, Mr. Masahiro Takahashi. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for your introduction. I'm Takashi from Nippon Yusen. Our industry, compared with other speakers, we are in a very different industry. So first I want to introduce to you the industry that we are in. And today, when we think about the decarbonization of Japan, there's been the Kyoto Protocol as well as the Paris Agreement. And on a country basis, measures have to be taken. But we are in the international shipping industry, and from which port is the other goods shipped, and where are they shipped to? We are engaged in a borderless business, and Nippon Yusen is a Japanese company, but cargoes come to Japan, and the cargo is shipped from Japan. Iron ore transported to shipped to Brazil. That happens, and the ships are registered not only in Japan but in Singapore and all over the world. And the ship crew, only a small portion happen to be a Japanese crew, and most ship crew are non-Japanese people, and all shipping companies are engaged in such borderless business. So when it comes to safety standards and fuel standards and so forth, they are all international. We have international standards, otherwise our industry will be in danger. Therefore, the International Maritime Organization, IMO, is an agency that belongs to the UN. And that is how we are working on decarbonization. And from Kyoto Protocol, it was mentioned that the international shipping industries should be outside of the scope of the Kyoto Protocol as well as Paris Agreement, and as a result, the IMO is delegated to discuss decarbonization matters. And similarly, the international aviation industry is also outside of the scope of the Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement, and as a result, IMO. Japan is making a lot of effort to contribute to IMO, and it's a sub committee. IMO is a sub agency of the IMO, and there are 175 countries and 3 regions, and there are 151 observers, industry organizations and NGOs and so forth are participating. And when it comes to MEPC, there is Marine Environmental Protection Committee talking about the marine environment. And under such circumstances in 2018, there was an agreement upon decarbonization target, and that assumed the 2-degree target at that time. And considering 2008 as baseline, by 2030, 40% in terms of efficiency improvement should be made, and by 2050, in terms of emission efficiency, 70% reduction should be made. And 50% reduction based on natural growth curve. And by the end of the century, we want to aim at net zero. But the trend in the world is now to base on 1.5 degrees target or below that, which means that the target we set for our industry is too slow. Therefore, 2050 target should now be 0. We are conducting serious discussions to aim at net zero by 2050. This year, from December 12th to 16th, there is going to be the MEPC 79 held, and then at MEPC 80, we want to agree upon aiming at net zero by 2050. And I work for Nippon Yusen, and there is the Japan Ship Owners Association, and together with the association and MLIT, as a representative of Japan during the past 4 to 5 years, I've been involved as a delegate in negotiations at MEPC. Next slide, please. And under such circumstances, we want to aim at net zero by 2050, and the Nippon Yusen Group what is our concept and how are we trying to aim at the net zero towards 2050? It's shown in the graph. And the fuel, most of the fuel used is heavy fuel, and petroleum is refined into gasoline and naphtha, and the distillate is considered to be a sea fuel oil or heavy oil. And it's almost like asphalt used on the roads. It's leftover crude oil. And 1.3 tons it generates a lot of CO2. And we have to switch over to zero emission vessels. And zero emission vessels, realistically, do they exist? No, they do not exist at all anywhere. Therefore, MLIT and the shipbuilding companies, we are working on projects with them so that we can use ammonia as a fuel for vessels. We are engaged in this R&D. And this should be available in 2028 onwards. And then what are we going to do before 2028? Currently, LNG emits 25% less CO2 than sea fuel oil. So now LNG vessels are the mainstream. And so we switched over from fuel oil to LNG, and then trying to switch over to ammonia. And in the future, we want to use biogas. So we want to convert the fuel that we use. And by 2050, we want to aim at net zero. That is the grand image we have. And throughout the world, as you can see on the first page, there are these kinds of vessels. There are about 50,000 of such vessels engaged in overseas transport. And there are about 2,400 and 2,300 Japanese vessels, and our company owns 600 vessels. And these 600 vessels, over the next 30 years, we have to replace to less emitting vessels. There's a lot we have to do, but we think we are strongly determined. We think we have to accomplish this, and globally, there are 50,000 vessels, and they all have to be switched over, and we need. And is there the capacity to change all of these vessels? It was a large global challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. The shipping industry is such that, as explained, this involves a transport across national boundaries. Separate from the Paris Agreement, shipping and aviation involves negotiations between countries, and these are the distinctive features. And on the challenging part of all this, perhaps we could address this later. Next, regional decarbonization is an effort being made by local government. The EV, electric vehicles, introducing that into the local region and using this as vehicles, but using this as storage batteries. Regional energy management is where EV is being leveraged from Odawa City. We have Director General Environmental Department, Mr. Fujisawa, with us. So over to you, sir.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I am Fujisawa, Director General, Environment Department, City of Odawara. In the transportation, this is our effort that I would like to introduce. We have just heard about a very global ocean-wide activity, but we are focusing on a very limited community based on local government authority. I have some slides, and in the case of urban cities, efforts for decarbonization is required, and plus we want to create new values. As a result, we want to create a sustainable society, and therefore we are one of the pioneering local government authorities that we have declared net zero. There are two efforts. First of all, expansion of renewable energy or storage battery or electric vehicles. These are considered to be resources for us, and we are trying to establish distributed energy system. Another point is also the topic of this session, but that is cross-sector public-private collaboration in order to capitalize on renewable energy to create sustainable cities. So transportation is one of the symbolic effort for us. Decarbonized regional transportation is what I will introduce. It does not mean we are merely trying to replace our fleet to zero-emission cars. Of course, that is important, but it's not only changing to zero-emission cars. As is shown on the upper part of the slide, demand-driven expansion of renewable energy, and second, to be part of the regional energy infrastructure. And we say EV share, but we want to promote sharing economy, and we want to enhance disaster resilience, disaster preparedness. That is why local government authorities have to take the lead, because these are the areas that we want to work upon. The public-private sector at our city, of course, we promote car sharing, particularly on electric vehicles, but we also promote energy management for the city as a whole. Next slide. Traditional gasoline cars did not have an important feature, which is this is a mobile storage battery, and it can be part of an infrastructure. There are multiple ways to use. The service started from June 2020, and there is 51 cars and 29 stations, and there is about 2,000 memberships using this sharing service. Next slide. So the current activities, they are expanding. For example, link with mass application or use these vehicles as power source at large events. And migration is including, so we want to attract migrants, or the so-called workation. We are dealing with these emerging trends. And what makes it possible is proactive public-private collaboration. The role of the city is we have established liaison committees. We are trying to engage new sectors or industries. We are inviting in new parties. We create a forum of open innovation, and it has led to regional microgrid using the transmission grid. So the role of the city is to create a platform and to link all the parties in the local community. So our function is to promote exchanges and enhance other functions. The convenience of the citizens have to be raised. At the same time, we want to create new value, but move towards decarbonization. So this was our transportation, which was a symbolic example.
Thank you very much for that. The key word is public-private cooperation as a local government in promoting such policies, public-private collaboration. How are you proceeding with that, and what are the challenges? Perhaps we could address that later. The third speaker, rail and public transportation is indispensable to our daily lives. Since April of this year, the entire railway has been changed to renewable energy sourced power. We have General Manager of Corporate Planning Headquarters, a Sustainable Corporate Strategy Group from Tokyo Corporation, Mr. Yoshiaki Yamanari. So you have the floor, sir. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Yamanari from Tokyo Corporation. As is shown here, we have formulated the Environment Vision 2030 in March, or we have upgraded this in March of this year. And although it's not written here as a overarching concept, other than rail, we have operate buses, and we engage in logistics and real estate leasing and selling of real estate is what we're engaged in as one of our concepts. To create a beautiful environment, which enables each and every one to pursue happiness. Although our business is rail and others, we want to do a proper job of building the city. And sustainable is a very important theme. Materiality, recycling society is something that we're also involved in. And these initiatives have been put together in the environmental vision. And on the in-house, there was a lot of discussion as a concept. Everyday life inspires the future was the theme by which new targets were set. The scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. We want to do a proper job of pursuing these to do a proper job of community building. And in areas other than our business areas, we want to contribute to decarbonization of the city. And we want to expand the circle of people involved in this, and that's our target. And various services we would like to propose in this connection. And that is shown here. The next page, please. And this being the case, this is the transport session. So I'd like to talk about our initiatives in rail and energy conservation, using of renewable energy and creating new energy, decarbonization. We want to liaise with all experts in these areas to muster wisdom to achieve our purpose. And as mentioned here, from the 1st of April, Tokyo Rail, all of Tokyo Rail sources renewable energy sourced power, and we've started operating with such power. Our railway business is such that, as you know, a lot of power is consumed in our line of business, and that is distinctive of our industry. So we're pursuing behaviors that would be environmentally friendly. And as I cited earlier, railway is such that it runs every day and it's used every day by consumers. We're fortunate, but this is the case. Environmentally friendly energy using trains are actually in existence, and we want you to be aware of this. When you're in the city, we hope that you would use these environmental friendly trains, because that would lead to decarbonization. And this is why we started this initiative. On the bottom right, you have Tokyo's consolidated. Well, we have bus and diesel fueled buses. 40% are traffic business at Tokyo. And of this, most of this is rail, and that has gone to zero. Hotels, resort, and real estate, we want to expand our initiatives in these segments as well. The next page. So the initiatives that we take in our rail business, I think it was last year that we started. Well, people tend to forget things when in their daily lives. Of course, when things are lost, then it's brought to the police. But after the period for retaining these goods are passed, then the person who found it keeps it. But we've tried to reuse such items to recycle this in society. And in the nodes of transport, and this is another distinctive feature of our company, with Unilever, we have cooperated in Manimachida Station, Granbury Park. This is where you would find this. Recycling plastics, used plastics is what we do. And we have installed collection boxes for this purpose. As mentioned earlier, with regard to rail, to purchase the environmental values, what we do. As to what we're attempting to do, corporate PPA is a word which is more frequently used. Newly developed small-sized and medium-sized solar generation devices. Next year in April in Kabukicho Tower in Tokyo, it's a new building we will be building. We will be using Tokyo PPS. We will be using power which is sourced from solar power generation. And going forward, of course, including rail, we would like to proceed with attempts which considers the overall energy picture. And so going forward, we want to aim for sustainable city building, harmonizing people and environment and the city. And recently in the media, it has been talked about, it's not our train, but 150 years from now, the Shinbashi-Yokohama rail opened. So this is the Railway Day. And so I'm very happy that I'm able to talk on such an occasion. It's a different kind of karma, I believe. Thank you very much. So I will not forget Railway Day going forward. It's not only decarbonization, the railway, the people who are living by the railway, changing their lifestyles toward decarbonization is what the company is attempting to do. The fourth speaker. People have parcels delivered every day from the parcel delivery service. We have a company, an environmental initiative taken from the start from vehicles for and also in their logistics system. So we have a general manager, CSR Promotion Department, Sagawa Express Company Limited, Ms. Noriko Yamane. The floor is yours, madam.
Thank you very much. I am Noriko Yamane of Sagawa Express. Thank you very much for this opportunity today. I would like to speak to the slides. First, Sagawa Express's environmental activities. I want to give you an overview. Our companies, vehicles, we have 26,000 vehicles, and we have about 56,000 employees. And we have about 873 facilities. And we handle about 1.4 billion packages per year, and 36,000 tons of CO2 emitted last year. And under such a situation, in the case of Sagawa Express, we want to achieve a carbon neutrality by 2050, and we want to reduce emission by 46% by 2030. And we are headquartered in Kyoto. In 1997, there was the Kyoto Protocol adopted, and that is when we started full-fledged environmental activity. First, we set up an Eco Project Promotion Committee, and by setting up this committee, we started full-fledged environmental activity. In the first 10 years, we focused on the infrastructure, tangible aspects. We introduced natural gas vehicles, idling stop, or natural gas stands. We introduced these infrastructure, and we also started solar power generation. And in the next 5 years, from 2003, WWF Climate Savers, we started to participate, and that is when we started to introduce intangible measures as well, not just tangible measures. We are engaged in forest preservation activities and logistics system in buildings and transport, combining cargo and passengers. And last year we started X Frontier. I think you have seen them in our TV commercials, and we have also set up large relay centers so that we can save energy and reduce CO2 emission. Next slide, please. And the most important environmental activity that we are engaged in is to reduce CO2 emitted from our vehicles. And we are introducing eco-friendly vehicles, for example, natural gas vehicles or hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles. So we are introducing these eco-friendly vehicles. And out of 27,000 vehicles, about 60% of these vehicles are eco-friendly vehicles. And from 2019, we've been collaborating with Suzu to develop small electric vehicle trucks. And we have developed a prototype light electric vehicles, and we want to introduce 7,000 light electric vehicles in the future, and we are using some biofuel as well. And another major measure is to use renewable energy. 30% of our large facilities are using a CO2-free renewable energy, renewable electricity. And in introducing renewable energy, it's important to use electric vehicles to be able to use renewable energy. For example, when we introduce electric vehicles, the CO2 is not emitted directly from electric vehicles, but electric vehicles use electricity, and that emits CO2 that belongs to scope 2. So we want to introduce electric vehicles and at the same time try to use renewable energy for the electricity used by electric vehicles. This concludes the main environmental measures that we are taking at our company. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the key, the vehicles, the automobiles, how to decarbonize that is a very important point, I believe. So from here on, I'd like to raise questions so the speakers can describe in more detail. The first question, in moving ahead with your initiatives, what's the most challenging aspect and how are you coming to grips with this challenging issue? Takahashi-san, you are involved in international shipping, and so you're a little bit different from the other industries. What's the most challenging aspect?
There are some differences and there are some similarities, but the key is renewable energy, how much renewable energy can be used and how much volume we can secure. In Japan and globally, that becomes the key. And our vessels, our company's vessels transport throughout the world, and it's not as a result of energy demand, but because of customers' demand. So when we go to other places, renewable energy derived fuel has to be usable, and otherwise we may not be able to move our vessels. So what kind of vessels do we have to construct? That depends on how much renewable energy can be supplied in various places and how much expansion in use of renewable energy is likely to take place. We have to align our pace with the global pace, because globally we have to be aligned, and therefore alignment is important. So we in the international shipping industry want to send out requests to the energy sector, for example, and we also want to receive as much feedback as possible from other industries. That, I think, is the most important challenge.
Thank you for that. Worldwide, to pursue decarbonization, there are countries in different situations, and they have to be in lockstep. So how do you realize this? So that's the most challenging aspect, I believe. That is what I heard. Next, turning to Mr. Fujitawa. As a local government, you talked about the public-private cooperation. In pursuing your activities, what's the most challenging aspect, please?
Thank you. The whole point is about the keyword. Local government authorities were not able to focus on this particular area traditionally or in the past. In terms of broader energy policy for local government authorities like cities and towns, we could not do anything like power supply. There will be large-scale power generation and long-distance transmission were required. But now it has changed. It is going to be autonomous, distributed power generation sources. For our local government authority, 2011, March 11, the Great East Japan earthquake was a huge impact. With rolling blackout, the community had to unite in order to overcome the difficulty of no power. And because of 2011 disaster, through public-private collaboration, we have tried to work as a local community. So indeed, this has been very challenging. Everything was challenging, so difficult. Nothing was easy. However, when local government authorities start to take action, can we just take leadership? And that is not only the point. In order to tackle such difficult situations, there must be a creation of new value and working with sectors beyond yourself. I think that is where the local government authority can play the role of a coordinator. I think that is a new role that local government authority can play. I take it as a new mission for local government authorities, and therefore the division of responsibility of public-private sector is one way to describe. Public-private collaboration is the engine to promote policy, and it is one of the important pillars of our city plan. We emphasize public-private coordination. At the government or a city office, we cannot provide every possible services. Then, in terms of policies, we can play the role of a catalyst to manage the policies so that other parties can provide what is required. So trying to be a catalyst might be a more reasonable approach. As I mentioned initially, we have set up liaison committees so that parties can get together and coordinate. So intra-sector coordination, a catalyst, I think, is the role that local government authorities can play. It is our position to be a catalyst. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're pursuing public-private cooperation, but the local governments to show policy and engage stakeholders of the region. That's where you believe there is a challenge. Next, Yamanari-san. Your daily lives change the futures. People's daily lives change the future. It's just not rail, but you are working on city building. So what do you find most challenging? Well, like everyone here, the energy situation, the energy prices are going up, and so it's a struggle to source power for rail. That's an issue, and it's challenging. But within the city, the daily lives of people changes the future. That is true. But for our part, if we do nothing, and if we take a business as usual attitude, nothing will proceed, and we have to be positive. It's not everyday life that changes things. So from respective companies, we cooperate, and also in-house and with the different people we collaborate. There are things out of control of our company alone. So we have to increase the number of sympathizers. But within the company, employees and those that use our company, and those who are not using our company but are still engaged in city building, there are different people. So how do we arrange things so that naturally they can cooperate? I'm sure this will be addressed later on. But increasing sympathizers, how do we do that? How do we increase people that resonate with us? That is what we struggle with on a daily basis. Very simply put, I think that is it. Thank you. Thank you very much. In pursuing city building, how to have people resonate, that is the challenging aspect, according to what you have just said. Turning to Ms. Yamane, since 1997, you have been involved in environmental issues for a long time, and recently decarbonization, I believe, is an area where the challenges have differed. So what is the most difficult aspect?
CO2 emission of Japan, 20% is from the transport sector, which means that the transport sector poses a significant impact. And within the transport sector, this train and passenger and cargo and transportation of passengers and cargoes, there are very important functions for people's daily lives. So we really have to play an important role in making effort towards decarbonization. We understand that. And main challenges in our company's decarbonization efforts are threefold. First, reducing greenhouse gas emission from vehicles, automobiles. And secondly, we want to promote the use of renewable energy derived electricity. And number three is to reduce greenhouse gas emission in the supply chain as a whole. And 80% of CO2 emission in our company's case is from vehicles, and that is the most important challenge. Specifically, for example, we want to introduce electric vehicles. We are trying to introduce EVs and fuel cell vehicles, but the cruising distance of electric vehicles is very short. For example, after charging electric vehicles for 10 hours, they can only drive 50 to 60 kilometers of distance. And only limited packages can be delivered in that distance. Under such circumstances, we have to introduce other types of low-emitting or eco-friendly vehicles, which is a difficulty. And we have 27,000 vehicles, automobiles. And if we are to switch them over entirely to electric vehicles, we need charging stands, charging stations, and that is very costly, which is also challenging. And as I mentioned before, in introducing electric vehicles have to be introduced together with the usage of renewable energy, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So electric vehicles have to be introduced together, as I said, with renewable energy. That's also a challenge. And long distance transport, for that we need to use fuel cell vehicles, FCVs. And quality of the vehicles as well as the price of the vehicles, that's not clear when it comes to fuel cell vehicles. The future is unclear for fuel cell vehicles, but we have to continue our effort towards greenhouse gas emission reduction. This I think is a bigger challenge, not only for us, but other companies in the transport industry as well. And what countermeasures are we taking? We are taking various measures on a trial and error basis. We want to consolidate the capability of all stakeholders, and we want to try out as many options as possible so that we can make our utmost effort towards decarbonization. That is the current situation.
Thank you very much. How to proceed with vehicle decarbonization. You're keeping this in mind, and at the same time, you're trying to reduce, and that is the challenge. Next, the second question here. We've had you talk about resolving challenging issues. What do you pin your hopes on whom or what in terms of development and cooperation? So, Takahashi-san, please.
I mentioned before that a global energy supply system has to be established. That is important. In 2020, for ocean-going vessels, we are trying to reduce sulfur used in our fuels, and the rule was amended to do that. But the major resource companies, because of EU competition law, they were afraid of violating the EU competition law. Therefore, they didn't comment whether they can supply low sulfur fuel or not. That was their response, and as a result, our industry was in a lot of turmoil. And globally, as we try to promote decarbonization, there are things that we are able to do, and there are things that we are not able to do. We have to share all of this information, and we have to all collaborate together. And the interpretation of competition law has to be changed. Otherwise, we will not be able to conduct measures speedily enough. I strongly feel so. And I try to send out this message as much as possible.
Thank you very much. Fujisawa-san, please.
Thank you. We do have corporate targets. In order to resolve issues, solutions and making systems and institutions, of course, are crucial. But then for that, technology and infrastructure are required. Innovation also is required to make the required frameworks. So we have to catch up and monitor the trends. City of Odawara, we have some targets for 2030. By 2030, carbon half, 50% reduction of emission is one of the goal. In addition to that, to expand the use of renewable by 5 times and the EV, 9,000 electric vehicles by 2030. These are some of our ambitious, we think it's ambitious, we have such goals. For example, in terms of power, energy, what we are doing is we are focusing on power supply, in fact. We must expand the resource on the demand side, or there must be new collaboration both in horizontal and vertical directions. So not only producing a good cell and it is not the end, we wish to continue to work so that the markets will continue to expand so that we can provide new options and solutions to our local community. In that regard, we look forward to very proactive collaboration.
Thank you for that. Yamanari-san, please. Yes. Decarbonization and increasing the people who empathize or sympathize with this is what have been mentioned. In 17 cities, SDG awareness surveys are being conducted by our company. And in this process, the trend that emerges is that with regard to SDGs, they are aware, they recognize this, and these people are on the increase. And the other question is related to the environment, or not necessarily restricted to the environment, to different social issues, products that are good in terms of this. Do you intentionally select these products? When we ask this question, there are differences and the response is mixed. But recently, there are people who are aware and who take action, and these people are showing a steady increase. And so in the questionnaire, that is becoming visible. And so this being the case, initially, before people take a very casual, everyday acts, we want them to be aware, and this needs to be translated into intended action. And we hope that this would happen. This is a small endeavor. We have the touch and coupon movement. It's a Minami Machida commercial park where people visit riding buses, and they have IC cards. And if they touch this terminal, they do a draw and they receive coupons. Depending on the number of touches, NPOs along the railway, we ask them to make contributions depending on the number of times that people have touched. Something that leads to consumption. The country has different point systems to induce consumption. When there's purchasing, the supplier finds it easier to supply, and so we hope that this cycle will expand. Our company alone, thinking about this, would really take us nowhere. There are restrictions, limitations to what we can do. So from industries, from academia, in the private sector, we hope that we will increase opportunities so that we can think together with them. And we hope that this will lead to a better future. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yamane-san, please.
In the transport sector, as we try to promote decarbonization, as everybody mentioned, it's a very challenging task. And based on that understanding, the requests I have would be, first, companies proactively promoting decarbonization first movers. These companies have to be supported by government, and the government, I think it's very good for them to come up with measures to promote that, and introducing electric vehicles for commercial vehicles. For that, we want to solicit further cooperation from car manufacturers so that we can accelerate the development of electric commercial vehicles, and hydrogen stations and EV charging stations. We still have only a limited number of them. Therefore, in order to improve infrastructure, we think it's important to promote further collaboration between and among companies as well as between different sectors. And in order to improve infrastructure, the government, when it comes to government subsidy for decarbonization compared with overseas, such as EU and the United States, the decarbonization subsidy granted by the Japanese government seems to be limited. So I kindly asked for more subsidy, and biofuel, new fuel would have to be used, and by so doing, we can accelerate effort towards decarbonization, because decarbonization cannot be achieved by vehicles alone.
Thank you very much. We're running out of time. Vehicles or fuel and engaging people this is an area where we have to seek different entry points. The common thread is that one company alone is not sufficient. You have to engage different people in different sectors, and how to expand the circle is a key point. And the other point, as I mentioned last, was the necessary policies and necessary cooperation. How do you raise your voices to make this happen? I think this is a very important point. Actually, I was planning to have one word each from each of the panelists, but we've really run out of time. So I'd like to bring this session to an end. As a JCI member, cooperation and collaboration, we hope that you will expand the circle of people who do that. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, Tanaka-san, and to all of the panelists. We wish to hear more of this discussion, but people have adhered to the time very punctually. We have are now able, therefore, to have a 7-minute break. So let us have a break until 5 o'clock. So we look forward to seeing you back again after that. Thank you.